Boom. All right, welcome back, guys. New episode, new day. Coach Pete, how you doing?
Great, man. Doing well. Doing well. I was just shutting off my sad lamp there, trying to get some vitamin D.
Oh, wow. So in this episode, what I've noticed with some of the clients, I would say a good portion of a new client that comes in is they get really into what we're doing, the work we're doing, and it really helps them understand their values, their vision, the direction that they want to go in their life. And they really start making improvements in almost every aspect of their lives. And one of the things that they feel holds them back from making the shift is their social group,
Mm,
their existing
common.
social group, noticing a lot of changes, noticing that they're way more driven, that they're even making some big moves in their lives, in their relationships, in their professional careers, in their health. And this can go against some of the social groups' values.
Absolutely, man. There's a couple of common pieces there that I see. I don't want to give too much away in terms of the program because it's
Right,
laid
right.
out so well.
Mhm.
But those first early modules, looking at yourself internally, just to understand oneself and to shed a lot of nice guy tendencies of people pleasing and really focusing on self. So like you said, really identifying a lot of those values, and yet not for everybody, but with most, it's been a very common theme coming out of, especially out of the pandemic, where a lot of men found that ability, and society, with all the isolation going on, really found that quote unquote comfort zone of not going out, not socializing, not kindling those connections, not even, making the effort to reach out necessarily. I'm not saying that this is everybody, but it's a very common for, I would say, 3/4 of the men, and likely, reflect, as the audience listening to this, reflect on like whether you have that group. And what I'm seeing, Andrew, with a lot of men is exactly like you're saying. There's kind of two pieces that I see. One is that they're on this path of growth. They've risen to their new story, this journey of personal growth and development, the hero's journey. And whether that social group that they do have is still serving them, whether that's actually fueling their growth and they're able to make those connections, or whether it's pulling them back into that default state of 2 years ago, 5 years ago, 10 years ago, 15 years ago, having the same conversations over and over again. Maybe vices are involved, it's activities surrounded by alcohol, possibly a lot of negative talk about what's going on in life for them, complaining. And in working with a lot of the men, it's recognizing that we need to upgrade those social connections along the way. And I'm not saying that this is where there can be a lot of confusion of men trying to feel like, oh, I've got to dump everybody and find new people. No, 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 no. There's likely people in your, men and women, both, in your social circles currently, that are just waiting for somebody to lead them out of it.
That's a big point right there.
Yeah.
There's a lot of talented, awesome people within your social group who are wanting more out of their lives, yet they themselves like don't yet feel like they're ready, or they have their own limiting beliefs. And so I want men to see and understand here is that you can be that leader. This isn't about removal of friends. Like, hey, you join our program, you level up your life, and then you just ditch your friends, but you do level up your life. That is where you want to go. Like that would be being a nice guy, to just stay at a level or at a place in your life that you aren't even happy with, to appease other people around you because you don't want to rise and outshine other people. But what you will notice is that there will be some of your social peers who will see you as a leader and as someone who's inspiring them to step forward as well in their lives. And by step forward, this doesn't necessarily mean like, hey, make more money. And it could be, I would argue most of our clients, money's not necessarily their main goal. They're doing quite well, and they're in a career. It is progressing. Now, whether or not that career serves them is a different question, but making more money is not necessarily the primary goal. But what it could be is like, we have a guy who owns like a venture capital firm. He's very financially successful, but he notices that with his peers, all he talks about is work. That basically his whole life is centered around business, around investments, around interest rates, around what's going on in the economy. And those are all good things. However, if you don't have anyone in your social life who's talking about, how's your romantic life? How's your sex life? What are we doing here to be amazing lovers? How are we going to improve as men for our families, not just as financial leaders or as men who just get things done and are productive? That's important. I'm never going to downplay that. But what about being a father or a figure in your household who is alive and brings joy, aliveness, and excitement into the lives of your family? So just kind of pointing out that your social group may be high level, and that might be the thing that holds you back. And by high level, I mean, they're financially very successful men. So you think, why would I ever change things up? This is amazing. This is a very high level group of men. But that high level group of men may only just be focused on one thing, which is financial success, focusing on retirement, focusing on every conversation is about investments and all this. And it's like, well, of course we're going to do well financially. Like all of us are going to do well financially. Who's actually living here? Who's actually 10 out of 10 living the life that they want with the rewards that they've worked so hard for? Bringing that kind of energy may be a value add to that guy. Whereas another guy may be advancing and quitting his job and building a business. And your other friends see that as a symbol of inspiration for you to step into who you are and then empower others to do the same. And so I think that's the mindset shift. It's like the false belief is simply, if I outgrow my social group, then I will lose them. When in fact, there will be some who may not necessarily be on board, but you may find that your guys' friendship exists for certain things. It's like, hey, we go do CrossFit together. With this guy, like we go do activities and hikes and stuff. But with this guy over here, we do more professional stuff together. We go to events or we talk more business. And so different people may serve different roles in your social group.
Absolutely, man. And it doesn't mean that you're only going to have X number of people that you hang out with. Maybe
how many people do you think is a good number?
It depends on the lifestyle, Andrew. Like the lifestyle that you live in San Diego versus the lifestyle that I live up in the Yukon, very different. Extremely different, right? Like, and I'll tell you that, and it's just the environment that I find the ability to connect in. For me, like I have recognized that my ability, and I'm pretty sure that I've got some form of ADD or ADHD, I'm highly distractible, right? Like if I try to go out to a pub and there's a TV or a screen on or like loud music or something like that, very hard for me to stay focused and present in the moment with that individual. I've tried and tried and tried, and it's just, I can't fight the laws of nature. This is wired in me. As much as I try to be present and hang on to somebody's every word, I can't get into the conversation as I could maybe out on a hike or out at a cabin or, maybe on a bike ride or something like that and stopping and posting up or just hanging out playing a board game. In those smaller, more intimate settings. So like I see men that find huge abundance in the ability to connect at like massive festivals. Love it. Absolutely love it. That's great. It's not my cup of tea. And different people are going to resonate at different levels. What I will say though, is, looking at your social connections as that inner group of 3 to 5 really, really close people, really close men. Like these are the guys that are going to go to war with you. If you raise that banner, that like something's going on, that I'm going to drop everything to go and help them out if they're in need.
I would agree with that. 3 to 5 is likely all that would be sufficient. And then outside of that, there could be more, but it's more like acquaintances. It's more like, I'll invite them to other bigger events, or I definitely value this other person. But as far as like who I go deep with and where I feel safe and where I can share the darkness and I can share the wins, and they're not going to judge me as being egoic, but just like want to celebrate me because they understand my journey. And it's not about one-upping each other. It's about celebrating each other. That's a huge piece right there, is just really,
Yeah.
I think most of my life, my ego of one upping other men is what I thought was going to help me attract
Mm.
higher quality men into my lives, but you're just trying to beat them versus connect with them and build with them and enjoy them and be present rather than bragging, which was something that took, quite some time for me to realize. When I just slowly stopped trying to one up and I started trying to connect, that my social life would slowly start to expand and the invitations would flow. But 3 to 5 is really it. After college, you're never going to have that again. If you went to a college and you were involved, and I was in a fraternity, and there was it was one of the largest on campus and one of the biggest in Southern California or California. And, I'll never have that again. And the goal should never be to try and get that again. That would not be ideal or even possible. Even inside of a social group like that, you probably still only have 3 to 5 really close friends anyways.
Yeah.
So I think that is really the aim. And I look at these 3 to 5 you're saying go to war with, and I like that. It could be whatever challenge or obstacle or even adventure that you guys are going to go on together. You look at these wars and why countries win and lose, and it's likely because they have better allies. And the countries that have the weakest allies are typically going to lose the war. And so you can look at wars, and then it usually starts kind of equal with 2 countries going at it. And then the allies start to come in slowly. And then whoever just has the strongest allies will win the war. You can see what, like when America enters World War I, like a huge shift happens. But World War II, as soon as America joins, that they kind of already knew the war was over as soon as America joined in World War II. South Korea exists largely in part due to America saving them as an ally. And they likely still exist because America is their ally. Same with Taiwan. If Taiwan didn't have America as their ally, Taiwan would be China. The same principle applies. If you have weak allies in life, you are likely not to overcome life's biggest battles as well as you could on your own. I just think you can do much bigger things with the right people in your life. Same with this team. Like, you can look at this team here. I could not do this if it's just me.
Mm-hmm.
Like, allies is so key to success in all aspects of life. I mean, when I go to the gym, I have allies there. I have person I work out with all the time, good friend. And then I even have a personal trainer now. He's an ally at the gym. He pushes me harder than I would ever push myself. And I do not have a good, healthy relationship with him because of that. but like, that's his role, right? Like, that's his role as my allies. I could just look at so many aspects of business and career, and it's like, who are your allies? And then that's easy to understand, right? When I bring up war, we're like, yeah, that makes sense. When I bring up business, you're like, of course, have the right team. But when it comes to social life, we often neglect that. Yet we are social creatures, and you're not going to override DNA. You're not going to override biology. You're not going to override what humans have been doing to thrive for millions and millions of years.
It's a really powerful analogy, and looking at it in terms of the allies and recognizing that these aren't built overnight, like just in the times of need, right? So we bring this back to looking at those 3 to 5 like-minded individuals, and what are your filters that you're applying for those people in your life to allow them into your space? Because I think this, for me, this comes down to time and energy management on my part, of like, I don't have the energy or the time to get to that deep level with all of those people that I know. It's this group here. I'm sure I'm going to invite you in, like if I'm having a fire in the backyard or heading out to like go camping or something like that, like just a pull-up type camping. But those pieces of, oh, we're going to go run, 1 by 1 by 24.
Yeah, check out that episode, guys.
Yeah, we're going to go and, we're going to meet up at 6 a.m. to, do this training, do this like running journey together 3 times a week. Like, I better like you, right? And we better be having some good dialogue along the way. Otherwise, I don't want to be just trapped running with my own thoughts beside somebody else trapped running in their own thoughts and talking about superficial stuff. If I'm going to go out on a multi-day hike or paddle trip or a hunting trip, I hope there's some substance there, right? Like, so looking at it in terms of that and the kindling, and a lot of the men struggle too, because a lot of those really great connections that they have, things happen that they end up moving, and there's a couple guys from university that I still stay in good contact with. Sure, I don't have them in real space all the time, but putting in those, like, just those simple habits of just firing a text message off, knowing what's going on in their life, checking in with them, like, how's your dad doing? How's your partner doing? How's the new house build going? Right? For men, it's these simple habits that drop off.
Very simple. It's funny that we're having this conversation now, because tomorrow I'm meeting up for lunch with two of my best friends from high school. Maybe I've spoken to them like very loosely, but I haven't seen them in over a decade. And it all just started with a text, a simple, hey, how are you doing? Text led to, oh my God, da, 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 da. And by the way, I'm turning 35. I'm not like just out of high school for those listening to it. I'm not like, hey, this is 3 years ago, but just a simple text. And then I just threw it out. I was like, let's meet up here. It's halfway. And then he reached out to another one of our really close friends. And then he was like, hell yeah. Everyone was like, hell yeah. The question that I thought of was like, what took so long in my head? And it's probably like that for everyone listening. You may reach out to someone, you'll realize that it flows real easy. You kind of pick up where you left right back off. And it's like a former ally you had, and they're happy to reconnect. Another way of looking at the allies is let's say during a breakup, if you're going through a breakup alone and you don't have any allies, it's hell. Like, I just want to draw back to, like, you can do things on your own. Like, I don't want people to think that you're just reliant on other people and that you're sort of just needy and you need all these other people. No, like, you can still be strong on your own and get through tremendous obstacles in life and achieve amazing goals on your own. But let's just take an example of the breakup, because I think when we look at that, or a guy going through a divorce, if he's alone, his level of suffering is going to be significantly greater than the man who has strong allies who show up for him and understand and give him the space to have those conversations and hold him accountable to a lot of the vices and distractions that he's likely going to engage in. Just that sense of being lost after a breakup. In many cases, women have a much more likely to reach out and get support, and they support each other, and they have a lot of strong allies on that end for women, and they can navigate the post-breakup experience in many cases a bit easier than a man, especially if the man is alone. And so I think when I give that example, we can see the importance of allies when it comes to things outside of financial or like fitness stuff like I talked about. Like, we're like, yeah, that makes sense. But what about when it's like about emotional significant challenges? And that's when you have moments like that where it can send a guy down a really long downward spiral for a very long time if he doesn't get his shit together. And so having allies in that situation, I think, is a tremendous advantage to a man.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's we all know the men in our life, or we've been there ourselves, when shit hits the fan and then we're reaching out to everybody. But then in the good times, we're not.
Exactly. When you only reach out when you need it, then yeah, I mean, some people will show up, but others may feel like, have you been adding value into this relationship for you to, pull out of it? Like, have you been pouring into this cup? That's a question I think every guy should ask, is like, how much value are you adding into the lives of those you care about? And think beyond financial.
It's so true, man.
I think that would be a challenge for, a lot of guys listening to this, is like, who is someone in your life that you think about often and you're not really sure why you haven't connected, in a while. Do connect with them. And you talked about social habits, and I really like that. Just like we have health habits, we have habits and routines around our morning, around our career and business, the way we operate, hopefully in our relationship. And the idea of a social habit, and what I mean is like connecting, adding value, reaching out, thinking of others. It's extremely fulfilling. And I think for men to have that group of 3 to 5 is a significant advantage in your life. To have 3 to 5 strong men who are growth oriented at some capacity, maybe not in the same capacity that you're in. Like, there could be someone who's like a musician, right? And they're like super creative and they're constantly growing, they're perfecting that thing, right? Another guy's a business guy, another guy's really into fitness and all this and health and all these weird like diets. That has the power to really make your life more interesting and more alive, and allows for significant support. I mean, I had gone through a breakup, and in the beginning of this year, I had friends show up within the hour at my door.
Mm.
And, I didn't ask for that, because it's not just like, hey, I need help in a breakup, but what does that communicate to me? When a friend does that, he stopped what he was doing, not even say he's coming, but just knock on my door. And I'm like, I can picture that pretty vividly of that happening. And so what does that do to me? Yes, it helps me in that moment, but now in the future, like, I've healed from that situation. However, the imprint of that friend showing up, I mean, that's going to last for a very long time. Like, I can't wait to show up in a way similar to how those friends did. Like, I can't wait to show up for that. Like, there's no doubt in my mind that I want to add value and show up whenever possible. Those friends weren't thinking like that, like, oh, hey, I'm going to do this so that, and then, Andrew's now in debt to me. It's like,
Yeah.
it's just like out of genuine masculine brotherhood and care and love for your friend here. And friends are interesting because you choose them. Hopefully you chose them, right? Because you can choose. Whereas brothers and siblings and family, this is just born into, and they're going to go down whatever path they want, and you're going to love them regardless. But with friends, you get to choose these men based off values. You choose them based off values. I hope the same way that someone would choose their partner, and that is what is going to make that group of 3 to 5 men in your life so strong. And yes, some of them will come out. I've had friends move away. I've had and all that, and you stay in touch, but like, that's sort of the importance of having an even a little bit of a wider group, as well as you'll always be meeting new men who you may become closer with.
Mm-hmm.
And so the value of continuing to be social, but that word I think has a mixed meaning, where when I say social, that might come across as go out and drink, go out to the game and get hammered, or hey, we do drugs together. And instead of social, we could just look at it as like, hey, go out, add value, and connect authentically with other men, and it's going to significantly benefit your emotional well-being, but just it's going to help you advance forward in life. And I do think this is a missing link as men get older. So I think for guys who are listening to this, yes, there could be some who struggle with social connection, for sure, at younger ages. However, because lesser responsibility, because of the age, tends to be more time available for social connection. But typically, as men age, going beyond their 30s and into their 40s and 50s, you typically see a social decline. It becomes harder because people have kids, people are married, people have obligations, they have a lot more going on, right? That's, I think, the avatar that would find this conversation, they agree, like, hey, that makes sense. I don't know how I'm going to go about that. Like, we're all busy guys.
Yeah, I get you, man. And I think that's where we should focus this next portion, is on that, because this is the question that continually comes up, is the how to, right? And I know that for me, Andrew, like, talking about a social habit, if you will.
Yeah.
Right. And you use the example of, just firing out that text and then boom, plans formulate out of that. That's like, that is the habit. That's the discipline. Because my default state is not to send that text message. Like, I'm a horrible texter. It'll take 2 or 3 days sometimes to respond back and forth. But generally, where that habit of reaching out to one person on a daily basis, like, that's built into my habit tracker to do that. Because if I don't have that set in there as a discipline that I must execute on a daily basis, it won't happen. That's not my default state, to pick up the phone and text somebody. It's not naturally ingrained in me. I'm trying to rewrite that portion of me to make that.
No, I agree. If it's a default state to not do that, then I think until that person sees the positive benefit of doing that, then that is what's going to make that habit really start to take form into becoming a real habit and a part of that person's life. When someone starts losing weight and they really start making progress, that right there becomes the habit. Like, they're like, wow. So, okay, let me get this straight. If I just eat healthy and clean and, stick away from a lot of the junk food and fast food, and I just show up to the gym 3 or 4 times a week and have a good workout following a program. All right, so you're telling me I get to just look better and I feel better? And the answer is yes, for those that were like, is it? And so reinforces you to keep doing that, because you just look at yourself in the mirror, you feel better, and then that then slowly becomes the habit. Or a guy who's single, he's like, hold on, let me get this straight. So I just learned how to be more social, connect with women, embrace my masculinity, own my power, and follow up with women. And I would start having more dates. And yes, for those wondering, the answer is yes. And, and you would likely, I'm not saying you're going to date all the best women in your community, but you would likely be having a more successful dating life than you currently are now. And for a guy, and then you go, oh, okay, well, now I'm dating. This is so much more exciting than just playing, video games and watching porn. So now I'm just going to do that, because that was not what I did, but now it is. A guy in a relationship, it's like, oh, I just start connecting more, listening, understanding her needs, and really showing up to her love language, taking her on regular date nights, and owning my masculinity and having more leadership in the bedroom. And you're telling me that my relationship just is going to get better? Then yes, all I'm saying is that until the positive outweighs the negative, the habit won't change. And so we start small, we build momentum, and then that habit takes form.
That's just it, man. Like when I set a habit or a discipline that I want to achieve, like I really want to hit 80% in a week, right? Like all the different habits that I know will benefit me in life. And that's where just sending out that simple text message, and you're going to build context over time, right? By just doing that, whether if that's one individual that you've fired a message to or given a quick phone call to, if you're connecting every week or every 2 weeks, you're going to have an idea of what's going on in life there, right? And there's going to be context to ask them, to ask those deeper questions of like, how is XYZ going for you? How did that turn out? What's new? Like, what's the next step for you? And, then it's, well, we should get together soon. Oh, cool, cool. Like, what do you want to do? Like, how about I've been really wanting to go and do this hike, for example, right? For maybe some of you city folk, it'd be like heading out to this festival.
There's beautiful hikes in San Diego. I don't know what you keep giving this idea that there's some of the most amazing hikes here, and I go on hikes all the time. I know. Like, I'm not like there just so happens to be an ocean, and then also it's not.
That's fair.
What's
That's
your weather
fair.
like? Negative. My
30. Own biases.
Yeah. There's nature here, man.
Yeah. And working in the context of where I live, it'd be, like weather looks great this coming weekend to go do that backcountry ski, to go do, that hike. Maybe there is an event or a festival going on downtown, or, some of these like running events or whatever it is. Or you create that. Right, you invite people over for a fire, for a board game, for just a hangout at the house in the backyard, whatever that is. Heading out, there's an abundance of options, and there's really no excuses. So I think that for the men listening to this, start there. Just reach out to one person in your contact list. Start with the people that you've had good connections with in the past, because there's no way that you're listening to this today and have not connected with anybody in your life. It's impossible.
Right. Connected well at some point.
Yeah. And beyond that, I recognize, because there's a common one that comes up for a lot of men that are married, that have families, that have obligations, that are surrounded by other men that have those family obligations. I get it. There's things that you have to do. And it just takes a little bit of additional planning. That no, maybe you can't drop it on somebody on a Wednesday to connect in 2 days on the Friday night. Give them some heads notice. Like, you've got to have the conversation with your wife or partner, organize the logistics with your kid, with the family obligations for sure. But hey, next month, let's connect. There's a golf tournament on the go. There's a tennis match. There's, let's start making an early morning routine of going to play squash, to hit the gym, whatever that is. Organize a family barbecue. The vast majority of the population is out there waiting for somebody to step up and create.
Exactly. That's sort of one of the main points of this whole episode.
Yeah.
Everyone is sort of just waiting for something to happen, just waiting for the leader, especially socially, and especially, as you mentioned earlier, post-pandemic, where we've become more accustomed to just some of our routines, just being comfortable at home, basically. And now the entertainment at home is amazing. Like, there's every show imaginable. They're all competing, like the Amazon, the Hulu, the Netflix, like the HBO. Like, there's just too many now. There's too many. I'm Disney. Like, I'm subscribed to too many. It should really just go back to how it was before. And I don't even watch them. I should probably cancel those. What am I doing? If the values are aligned with you and your other friends, like, or other people, getting together is who's going to step up. And if you don't have people to connect with, you're like, I actually don't have people who are aligned with my values. That's the problem. You need to go out and find groups that are like-minded, right? For some, like, I know you're doing Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu, which is awesome. There's a lot of really interesting, eclectic type people who train that. A really amazing martial art. I highly recommend for every man, really.
Mm-hmm.
But maybe it's not that. Or, you know, when I was really trying to build my social group post-college, this was a long time ago, guys. I'm not just out of college, but I was alone. And it was like a shocking experience because I went from being, you know, having all these people in my life and all this to just literally everyone just kind of like moved on. And I was just going to meetup groups that I thought were like-minded. I was going to personal development groups. I was going to seminars. I was going to anything that I thought was going to be interesting. I was going to like spiritual stuff. I started doing yoga. I was going beyond what I thought I would do. I wasn't just like, this is who I am. This is all I'm going to do. Like, I was going to all kinds of different events. And at these events, I would meet people and then I would connect with them. And then I would pull them out of those events, not at the event, but like I'd get their contact information, then I'd follow up, and then I'd invite them to other events that I'm doing. So that was sort of how it started for me. It was like, I go to events that are like-minded, I meet people, and then I invite people to other events that I am attending. So it's like, people like when something's already happening. It's not like, hey, what do you want to do? It's like, I am doing this at this time. Do you want to come? Yeah. And that is like, yeah, like if they're not doing anything, in most cases, it's like, sure. And then people come out, and this can be men and women if you're single. And this can be a good way to sort of like build a social group. Then you meet a couple people, and then those couple people know other people. And like, hey, I want to bring my friend John or Jack or whatever. And then boom, now you're meeting these people. If one was to take this consistently, and I go into this in extreme detail in the program and like a way more inside of the program. But if one was to take this seriously for just several months, you would have a whole new social group. If one took it seriously and they were like, I want to commit to adding value, to connecting more, to developing my social skills and expanding my social group so that I can prepare myself for the rest of my life with strong allies. And many of these friends that I met along that early journey where I took this seriously are the same friends that are bothering me right here on the left with text messages. That they're the same friends that I've had for really close friends for longer than a decade post college. You know, meeting people when it's a little bit different when you meet someone post college, because college, like, or high school or where you grew up, you're friends with those people because they were just right next to you. Like, they just so happened to be sitting right next to you in class, and you guys enjoyed drinking and partying together. But like, when it comes to post college, years out into your 20s, 30s, and 40s and beyond, it is about your values. And so going to these groups is really effective because that group is already saying a lot. If I'm at a personal development type seminar where it's about like, you know, becoming the best version of yourself, whatever, that says a lot. Or a business or entrepreneurial type group or investment type group or just whatever. It doesn't have to be focused on growth, although I'd recommend it. So just go where they're at. It's like you're fishing. If you're fishing for a certain type of fish, do you fish, Pete? I feel like you might.
I don't.
Oh, okay. I feel like you just use your hands, right? You just dive in. I feel like you're just like, you just get after it.
Yeah, well, I'm not a fan of like lake or river fishing. I love ocean fishing. That spoiled me because you pulled a lot of fish out of the sea really fast. And I don't have the patience for the lake or river fishing. I always just want to go hike that mountain that I'm staring at instead.
Well, I think of it like this, like, if we're looking for a certain type of fish, they only are going to exist in certain areas of the world. And so certain social groups will hang around doing similar things at certain places in your community. And so you just simply go there. Like, if I'm fishing for salmon, like, I'm going to go fish where the salmon are. If I'm fishing for people who are going to be like-minded with my values, well, then I'm going to go to these places that I like, which is like personal development, spiritual, anything that's going to improve your life, your health, your business, your career, your confidence, your romantic life. Like, I'm interested. Like, it's like, yeah, I'm interested. And then I just go there for myself. So I'm not there like, you know, preying on people like, hey, will you be my friend? Like, I'm there genuinely enjoying the event and just connecting with people. So just go where they are and connect, add value. And that would be the basis.
Yeah, man, that's exactly it. I love that right there. You know, the kind of looking at that how to is look at what you're interested in.
Right.
For the vast majority listening to this, you likely live in a fairly populated area. I like
Yeah.
on my journey, man, like when I left college, when I left university, moved to a town of 1,500. Yeah. So these things like meetups and everything.
It's like my apartment complex.
Totally. I get it. This was my town. So, but there's people that you're working with that already right there. There's a like-minded group. Recognizing that certain boundaries may need to play depending on, if you're in a supervisory or leadership role, there may need to be a level of separation there. Get it. However, in connecting with some of those colleagues, where that led into was joining up with the volunteer fire and rescue department, right? Made some great friendships there. This is going to sound, and totally is very Canadian of me, but joining the curling club and got to meet a lot of really great people there as well, right? Moving up to Whitehorse, again, not a huge population, 28,000. There's a gym, there's Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu, there was the SPCA, getting involved with the dog rescue shelter. Like, these are all things that I'm interested in,
right,
that I'm passionate about. Like, I'm not going to go out to learn how to crochet and hope to find the friends that I want to attract there necessarily, because I am not passionate about that. But being able to connect through a martial art, through curling, through skiing, through mountain biking, through jiu-jitsu, whatever it is, that's something that I'm excited about. My energy is going to be there, and I'm going to project that. You use that example of the personal growth and development. What a powerful place to get offline now that the pandemic restrictions are easing. Go and check that out, whether that is that personal growth and development, whether that is investing or business building or whatever it is, a spiritual group. Go and travel afar. Like, I can tell you, man, from that men's retreat that I went down to, getting to know a guy there. He lives right next door in Alaska during the summers. I can't wait for next summer to go over and visit him.
Right. And there's going to be times when you do get together or you invite people out and maybe you guys don't get along, or maybe you realize like, hey, this isn't what I thought. And look, that's just a part of it. You just move on and continue. You can't let encounters like that prevent you from building your allies. Like, it's all good, and you just continue. And I will tell you that you for sure are going to meet people where you guys don't connect. And that's actually good. Like, you don't want to force these connections, just allow them to flow. And it really shouldn't feel like too much work. If the values are aligned, the invitation comes out, or you send it out, he or she sends it out, then, you take it and then you roll with it. Or there's a lot of friction, no need to be rude or say it, just move on. And as far as old friends go, what I have found is that when you're thriving, the right ones will come forward and like want to connect with you again. And like, you're not going to lose your old friends simply because you're thriving. Some may go their own paths, whatever, but perhaps some people they served a purpose. That was it. And then you just kind of held on to it for too long, but it's all good. As Pete was sharing, and if there's anything you're getting from this episode, is like, be the leader who creates.
Mm-hmm.
I know in my life, when I'm not creating, I'm not going to be that happy. Creating, it could be anything, like creating this lunch with friends, or later tonight, a dinner, or a book, which I finished on breakups. We're creating a mastermind. Like, we're creating this podcast right now. Like, when I'm in creation, I feel really good about myself. When I'm just sitting, letting things happen to me, and I'm not creating, I'm not coming up with ideas and turning them into reality. For me, I think I just fall into depression. The antidote to depression for me is creation. And I think people do create. I'm not saying people do not create. I'm saying, but people may not be creating in their social lives. Like, that's something that they may not create.
I think looking back at that man, that family man that's got maybe a couple of youngsters, and the family obligations there, recognizing that you're part of something bigger, that there is a big role to play there, that you don't have necessarily as much time. And I was kind of laughing to myself because I was thinking of all of the fathers out there that are just craving somebody to step up and create that larger family event. And I don't know if this has been your experience, Andrew, if you've seen this, but it seems like, I know of a few, I've seen it happen over the years, of the father that steps up, maybe he's got a couple kids, 4, 5, 6, between 4 to 10 years old, let's say, and they bust a slip and slide out. or like the bouncy castle or whatever. And 50% of the dads that show up and then leave have like a broken bone or something, because they just unleashed that inner child in that environment, because they were just so jacked up having a blast in that family setting with the kids, with the other fathers. You know, find those opportunities to make those connections, even bringing those families together, even just in your own neighborhood.
Yeah, right there. That it's like, hey, I can't because my family will bring the families together. You should be able to go out and hang with other men once a month.
Yeah.
It is good and healthy for you and your own masculinity and your own sense of having a sense of allies and brotherhood in your life is important for yourself, but for your partner and being a strong leader for your kids. I mean, I would say there's perhaps more of a reason for you to have strong allies. If you have a family and kids, you have a real significant responsibility here. It's not just about connecting and having fun, but like you're connecting and growing as stronger men and leaders. And that's going to be very important to hear other men's perspectives of how they're going about perhaps challenges with raising children or having a romantic life with your partner while you guys have a family and kids. Like, I would say you have more of a reason. It's really important to have that masculine energy and different perspectives from other men in your life while you go about whatever it is that you want to do. Maybe you guys are just catching up over dinner, or maybe it's something active or physical or whatever. I haven't found living in isolation to be beneficial for my life. I have found that every aspect of my life has improved as an addition to having high quality, like-minded men. I think like-minded and values-based is a key word here in my life. My professional life has absolutely improved as a result of being around other men who are on similar paths and journeys and seeing how they overcome challenges. If you're single, like it's a lot easier if you already have friends to go out with and do things with and engage with other women with. You can still do it alone. Like the lone wolf you can still do it, but especially in those early stages of dating, like women definitely enjoy that you have a social life and you're introducing them to people. Pre-selection is a very real thing, which is other people value and respect you and say that you're awesome, which means, by default, like she must agree that you're awesome. And that's the same with a guy in a relationship. Like pre-selection is still very powerful. Other high quality men respecting you and in your life is beneficial. Your partner does think that's attractive. I don't want to go too far into detail on this, but it is still attractive that other women, you're never to act on it, but that other women do find you attractive and that you are socially capable, but you're not acting on it. That is important. Like women don't want to like be with a guy who she's the only one who would want to be with this guy. It makes her feel very special when she knows that you're committed to her, yet he's choosing to do that because he knows and she knows that he's capable. Never to act. I don't want to confuse that. Like, oh, do I go out and flirt with girls? I'm not saying that, but the pre-selection of others valuing you, it has a huge impact on your value as a man and your kids too. I think it's healthy for your kids to see that you even have friends and that you're social and fun and connecting with others. That's healthy for them to see as a role model. I haven't found, or I guess I can't, no, that's not true. I was about to say, I haven't found a downside to social group, which I just did a whole episode about how you can take it too far. If the vices are a key role of that social group, then likely this is going to lead to problems eventually. If vices are sort of the backbone to like, do I hang out with this person only with vices? And if the answer is yes, then likely this relationship, this friendship is likely to eventually have some sort of problems, or it may not be based off real friendship if you have to be intoxicated or doing something with drugs or alcohol to be with that person as a test for some, because I know distractions can really take a hold of someone's life. But healthy, strong, like-minded men has the power to advance every area of life, as well as have fun adventures. I'm planning a trip to South America with a couple friends. That's going to be more unwinding and allowing myself to rest and just enjoy a new culture and food and enjoy the time. So it's not all just about, oh, I have to improve. It's just life. And I think when you have the right people, as well as obviously a like-minded partner, you're feeling so connected and alive. It can't just be all about work.
No, can't be all about work. Can't be all about vices either. I think that that's a really, really powerful piece to bring forward. And I would challenge the audience to look at who are the 5 people that you're surrounded by most frequently,
Right.
because you're going to be a product of that.
100%.
Right. So it's your job to take leadership of your life, of what you want to build and create, see who is willing to rise to the challenge to come along with you, and find those opportunities to bring some of those people out of those typical environments. You know, you talk about the work, about the vices. If that's what everything's always been surrounded by, then try to take them out onto an adventure. Some will rise, some will not.
Right.
And find those opportunities. If you're looking to build that network, then start finding opportunities in your community with things that you either already enjoy doing, but maybe are doing solo, and find group activities for it, or something that you've been wanting to do, but holding back for some reason. Something that when you drive by or you see it or you hear about it, that would be really exciting. I'd love to do that no, take that win out, just do it. Find the opportunity, get it scheduled in, go and do it. In this age of technology, you know, it's not like you're pulling up newspapers and trying to find advertisements for it anymore. Like, it's all available at our fingertips with these meetups. There's apps dedicated to getting people together.
100%. And so we could talk about technology, like the role of social media here. We just look at our clients. Some of them will be like, look, I'm growing up focused on myself. Like, I'm gonna delete the social media. And I do respect that, especially if it's a huge distraction for you. I think there can be a time where that is necessary to delete social media so it's not distracting you, so that you can focus on the life that you want to create, the relationships you want to create. However, I think after a certain point, you can come back to it. And I think social media could be used in a way to magnify your communication abilities, and using it as a tool for distribution and connection of, I share things that are values based, that are authentic to me. I post things somewhat regularly, maybe 1 to 3 times a week, right? This probably takes 5 minutes each time, but we have to think about what this does. Like, I'm connecting with dozens or hundreds or thousands of people, especially as you're meeting new people. It's really easy to just be like, hey, follow me, da, da, da. And then like you can stay in touch with someone through that a lot easier. You know, this podcast recently hit 10 million downloads. Oh, I forgot to mention that.
Congratulations.
maybe we should have started it with that. But yesterday it hit 10 million downloads, and I posted a screenshot of that, and then boom, like, you know, just a bunch of friends and people come in and direct message me and comment. The line here is, I'm not doing this for, maybe there's a little bit of ego, but you know, if I'm being honest, there might be a little bit of ego here. But look, I've been on this journey for almost a decade, and it took me this long, and like I've overcome a lot to get to this place. And so I don't think there's anything wrong with celebrating a win that I'm proud of, that I've like put my blood, sweat, and tears and went into significant debt to get to. That's just an example. Then boom, people are reaching out. I find that it's a good tool, and it's an easy tool to connect with a lot of people at once. And for that, I find it valuable. But one would have to look at who they're following. And I would 100% you do an audit and remove all this nonsense that you're likely following that pushed you away from social media. Because who you follow is going to create your social media experience. And so I'm following basically my closest, like my friends, like my family, and just other sort of maybe personal development type of influencers that I find interesting, that help me think differently. And so what I see is just my close people and value-based things. And so I don't find that to be very unhealthy unless I'm on it for too long, right? Unless I'm spending hours on this, then okay, this is becoming a problem. But allowing myself 15 minutes to connect with others, like, this is a tool for socializing. And if you're using it to reach out, other people are posting stuff and I'll always like direct message them or comment. It keeps me in the loop. It's a mass communication tool that costs $0. That's just really what you can use it as. You just have to have some boundaries around who you're going to follow. Because let's say a guy's single. I mean, even guys in relationships, they're following these girls that they've never spoken to, but they're really hot and they post these photos. Okay, that's going to be very dangerous. And I've fallen down that path where, you're following a couple girls and then you're following more. And then all of a sudden you're just seeing all this stuff that if I don't plan on talking to this person or have no capacity to connect with this person, then they're not going to be someone I follow. Like that's just the rule. Otherwise, what am I doing looking at this person's life? So that's how I look at it. Like I would audit everyone you're following. Like, am I going to reach out to this person, either this month or the next couple months? And if the answer is no, then I need to remove them. I'm just ogling this person or this woman, and that's not good, right?
Yeah,
So
it's a common one, man. It's a very common one of essentially porn light.
yeah, it's porn light, and it often leads to porn because once you if you get triggered, it's like what they allow women to post on social media is often can be considered Playboy like back in the day, like right. We have to be able to push that away and just use this as a tool for mass communication with your people, as well as direct communication to direct message people that you're connecting with. I get invitations all the time from people that likely would not text me, but because they see what I'm up to, they're like, oh my gosh, we haven't connected. I think social media has a place if one can set the boundaries and be disciplined with it.
One of the biggest uses and tools that I see for it, like I don't post regularly on social media, but is creating those events, like something that you do want to host maybe next month, next week, 2 months down the road, next quarter, whatever that is, and then casting that out to that friend group. And then they have the ability to get it into the calendar. You have the ability, it's going to hold you accountable to it as well. That, hey, I said that I'm going to do this thing. It's up there. 3, 5, 7, 15 people said they're coming. Like, okay, I got to pull this off now.
Yeah.
And it's something to look forward to.
100%. Yeah.
I mean, I'm very technologically unsavvy.
You're a lot, I would say you're a lot better than you think. You're leading calls like multiple times a week. You're better than you think. Is there anything that we haven't covered around value of social connection?
I think we should take a deeper dive on another episode of how this translates into that dating life, because I know that that's a big focal point for a lot of men and it's just recognizing that that's just an extension of being a social being, and the necessity to have that own social group to ensure that you're not placing all those needs for that connection, for mental stimulation, for emotional understanding, you name it, all of those needs onto one individual being your partner, and how that can drive them away if you're trying to skip this phase and go directly into that dating phase. You're talking about that lone wolf, and sure, it can seem great initially, but once that honeymoon phase dies off, it can add tremendous amount of pressure to the relationship.
Right. Absolutely. For guys wanting to build their social lives, I think it starts with, as well as knowing who you are, knowing your values, because from there, that's how you're going to create the social life and also attract the right partner and what have you. If you're single, we got to start with the self and then expand outward to then you'll attract others like that, simply if you put yourself in those environments. If you're just sitting at home, likely not going to happen, right? So for those interested in learning more about becoming a stronger, grounded man, creating an awesome social life of like-minded men, and creating an epic relationship, then you can visit kfmcoach.com. But thanks for tuning into this episode. I've been really enjoying these. This was a fun episode, a lot lighter than the last one.
Yeah, for sure, man. And just a closing thought for the men here listening to this is write your own definition of what that social life looks like for you, right? There's a tremendous amount of pressure from society, of what a social life is supposed to look like. And it's these massive rager parties and, exotic trips with a bunch of people that, these Facebook images, Instagram posts of people saying that all these people are their friends and they're just there because you've got the money or whatever it is. So write your own definition of what that is, of what that 3 to 5 like-minded people what the value exchange is there with them, and that it's not trying to get these 200 people. All right. And a lot of men are unsure where to start. It starts with one. One person that you can start deepening that connection with, and you have them in your phone. You just got to reach out.
Absolutely. Awesome. We'll put the cut there.
Yeah, brother.
Very good. I just noticed your dog's right there.
Yeah. This is the good one. He's